Welcome to this special climate outtake of Burning Earth Radio. This is your host, Gerard Spring, coming to you from the north. So, one of the things that's really important to remember about climate, everyone, is that you can't take apart the climate system. Like, you can't look at the weather in your area and relate that to the climate as a whole. Weather is a local phenomenon, whereas climate is a planetary phenomenon. So what happens in one part of the climate system cascades and affects other things in the climate system. And I think that this is a really nice example that shows that. So without further ado, I'd like to look at this cyclone complex that's developed here over North America. It looks like it's, maybe centered on South Dakota here. And what you see is you have a lot of warm air that's getting pulled up out of the Gulf of Mexico, coming out over Texas. You have Louisiana coast down here, and then, panhandle of Florida, even over here, Texas coast, coming up over Oklahoma, over Iowa, Missouri, getting pulled up over the Great Lakes, even almost all the way over into Ohio, and getting pulled into this cyclone complex here. And on the backside, what you have is a bunch of cold air that's locked up in the mountains, that's running down the mountain slopes, warming up, and then getting entrained to this cyclone complex here. And if we swing over and look at the total precipitable water, we can see that on the front side of this cyclone, we have a lot of moist air, warm, moist air flowing up from the south. And on the back side of this cyclone complex, the air is very dry. And this becomes more pronounced if you look at the relative humidity map. Over the mountains on the backside, we have lots of cold air coming down, and on the front side, we have a lot of warm air coming up. So 100% humidity here, and then over here, 45% humidity, much lower. So along this line, you're going to get a lot of rains, and a lot of rains are getting pulled up in places now where there should even be snow. You have to remember, this is almost December. It's going to be December tomorrow. So, a lot of these areas should be cold right now, very cold right now. So I want to connect this particular cyclone complex to what's happening up in the Arctic, because it shows the linkage between warmer temperatures further north and aberrant weather patterns further south. So I've gone ahead and pulled up Climate Reanalyzer, the temperature map for today. So over here you have the nice temperature scale. We have Fahrenheit here on the left for the American audience, and then we have Celsius over here on the right for pretty much everyone else. And what we can see here over the North American continent is a large mass of warm air this is more of an oceanic mass. You have warm air coming up here from the Gulf of Mexico. You have maybe cold air coming down here around, maybe high pressure dome in this area, sweeping down. So there's a lot of warm air that's getting pulled up, even as high as Lake Winnipeg up here. We have above zero temperatures. And very disturbingly, if we look in the Hudson Bay, we have above zero air temperatures. So, this should be very cold up here, everyone. This should be, maybe minus 10, minus 20. This is, especially along this north coast here, it should be much, much, much colder than 0 degrees. And we can quantify this in the temperature anomaly map, which I'll pull up over here. So you can see that there's this large patch of warm air that's sitting over Nunavut. In fact, it looks like all of the province of Nunavut, which contains, the Arctic islands all the way up into the north, is very, very much warmer than it should be. It's 15 degrees C over here, warmer than it should be for this time of year. So if we look at this temperature anomaly a bit more closely, we'll see that it extends very far to the south, all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. So we have plus 10 degrees C, warmer than average, all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. And this reflects a lot of this warm air getting pulled to the north. In a lot of these areas where we should have, the early season snows, it's getting into winter now, we're starting to see very strange rainstorms. And this has a lot of effects on crops and what's happening with crops. A lot of this is, agricultural land. So it's important to consider the economic and social consequences of these kinds of temperature differences, extending up even all the way here into Manitoba, So this is a very late season warm spell that's developed over the North American continent. And if we swing over here and look at the sea ice, we can see that a lot of this sea ice here is not yet frozen, especially up here in the north. Kara Sea up here is Svalbard. So there's a lot of warm air in the Arctic in general, and this warm air has been shifting around the polar region. Sometimes it dips down over North America, as it is right now. Other times it was dipping down over into Siberia. There were also times when it's been dipping down here over in Scandinavia even, and then this area was very cold, leaving this area very warm. So this general warming of the Arctic is not really contained in the Arctic per se. It's leaking out of the Arctic and penetrating down into the lower latitudes of the North American continent in this case. And it's really important to notice, for example, here the Hudson Bay, where we saw those very warm temperatures. None of this is frozen. All of this water should be frozen under this blue line, and none of it is frozen. And it's just the air temperatures are very close to zero. So the water in the Hudson Bay is definitely a lot warmer than normal. And this water should definitely be frozen right now. So swinging back over here into Earth Null School, we can see this general pattern that's induced by the overall warming in the Arctic. The climate changes in the Arctic have redistributed heat, and that redistribution of heat is driving different weather patterns at lower latitudes. And this is exactly what you're seeing with this cyclone complex, is that you have this anomalously warm air stretching up from the Gulf of Mexico all the way up into the high Arctic, and you have normally cold air, not so anomalously cold air, coming down off the mountains and getting pulled up into this mixing zone that's happening in this cyclone here. And I think it's really critical to look at these weather patterns and to appreciate them and to understand that climate change does not occur on a local level. It's something which affects all of us, and it's something which affects all of us in different ways at different times, and often very unpredictable ways. So it's very important to look at climate and the effect it actually will have on people, on economies, on nations, because the climate system doesn't see our national borders and it doesn't see our conflicts. So with that, everyone, I think I'm going to wrap up this special climate outtake, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you did. And I'm looking forward to having you along in the next one.